By the time Dragon King Oryn Kade let them drag Tavena Ashlow away from the royal wedding veil, the wedding court had already decided her hands were too dirty for vows. Ash lived in Tavena's skin no matter how hard she scrubbed. It sat in the thin burn lines across her fingers, dark beneath her nails, gray at the creases of her palms where dragon thread had bitten her year after year. The noblewomen saw stains. The scribes saw servant work. The bride's attendants saw something shameful standing too close to silk. Tavena saw the lower left hem of the Ember Bridal Veil trembling. That was why she did not step back. The royal wedding chamber of Emberfall blazed with candle fire and dragon glass mirrors. Gold banners fell from the black stone arches. Ember lilies smoked in tall bronze bowls. At the center of the chamber stood Lady Saraven, the chosen bride, dressed in pearl-white silk and red gold jewels, her face calm beneath a veil so ancient it seemed, woven from sunset and ash. Bride scribe Lethia Dorn stood beside her with the marriage ledger pressed against her ribs. "Do not let the ash girl touch the bride's veil," Lethia said, soft enough to sound refined, loud enough for the court to enjoy. Some stains survived soap. A few ladies laughed behind jeweled fans. Tavena kept her burned hands at her sides. She had mended that veil for 6 winters. She had repaired its torn vow threads with dragon ash, breath silk, and blood-price knots so small that even royal scribes had stopped pretending they could see them. No noble had thanked her. No bride had asked her name. They sent for Tavena only when ancient fabric failed, then sent her away before guests arrived. Today, Lethia had removed her name from the wedding chamber record entirely. A servant with burned hands did not belong beside a royal bride. Dragon King Oryn Kade stood at the altar steps in black ceremonial armor, ember gold chains across his chest, a crown of red iron and dragon horn resting against his dark hair. His face was sharp, severe, and beautiful in the dangerous way of a blade held near flame. The court feared him. The border lords needed him. The bride had been chosen to strengthen a treaty his throne could not afford to lose. He looked at Tavena only because she had not moved when ordered. "Tavena Ashlow," he said, voice low and controlled. "The veil has been approved by the bride, scribe. Step away." Tavena felt the room waiting for her obedience. She looked at the veil again. The lower left hem trembled once more. Not from wind, not from the bride's breath, from a cut thread trying to remember where it had once belonged. "The veil is not approved," Tavena said. Lethia's eyes hardened. "The ash girl forgets herself." "No," Tavena said. "I remember the work everyone else wants hidden." A colder silence moved through the chamber. Oryn's gaze shifted from Tavena's face to her hands. He saw the burns. She watched him see them and decide for one brief second whether they were evidence or ugliness. Lethia stepped neatly into that second. "Majesty, this woman was kept for thread repairs only. Low work, useful, but not ceremonial. She has no authority to delay a royal marriage." "The lower hem was cut," Tavena said. Lady Saraven stiffened beneath the veil. Lethia gave a small laugh. "Every ancient veil has repairs." "Not there." "Enough," Lethia said. Her voice stayed elegant, but her fingers tightened around the ledger. "The bride is waiting. The court is watching. Shall Emberfall's king be held hostage by a seamstress frightened of her own stitches?" The word seamstress was meant to shrink her. Tavena lifted her chin. "A seamstress joins cloth. A vow-thread mender reads what the cloth remembers." Oryn's expression changed slightly. "Not trust. Attention." Lethia saw it and moved quickly. "Majesty, if you allow this, every servant who touches royal linen will claim ancient power." Her hands are burned because she was careless with ash thread, not because the veil speaks to her. Tavena's fingers closed once. Careless. She had burned them, holding broken vow-thread together while noble brides cried over jewels and kings pretended marriage was only contract. She had sealed names that trembled. She had mended breath knots left by dead queens. She had felt the veil resist false silk. But pain was not proof, so she gave him law. The Ember Bridal Veil does not choose brides, Tavena said. It does not bless love. It does not crown queens. It did not name thieves. It did not punish women for wearing what they had been handed. It remembered only the thread. The first vow cut, the breath, not moved, and the hand that tied a stolen promise into royal silk. The chamber lost its laughter. Lethia went very still, only for a heartbeat. Then she smiled. Old workroom superstition. Tavena looked at the veil. Then let me touch the hem. No, Lethia said too fast. Oryn heard it. So did Tavena. He turned his head toward the bride scribe. Why not? Lethia bowed. Because a royal bride should not be handled by ash-stained fingers before vows. A murmur of approval moved through the noblewomen. Oryn looked back at Tavena. His face hardened again. Duty returned like armor closing. This wedding binds 3 ember houses to my crown, he said. I will not let thread panic undo what blood has nearly failed to hold. The words cut deeper than mockery, because he almost understood and still chose not to ask. Tavena looked at him steadily. Then you will marry what the veil refuses to carry. A bride's attendant gasped. Lethia snapped. Remove her. 2 guards stepped forward. Tavena did not fight them. She only lifted her burned hands high enough for the room to see she touched nothing. Remember that, she said. If it burns, it is not from my fingers. The guards seized her arms. Oryn did not stop them. That was his mistake, and the veil heard it before he did. Lady Saravine stepped toward the altar. Lethia lifted the Ember Bridal Veil over the bride's face, arranging the ancient fabric so its red gold edge fell perfectly across her throat. The court exhaled in relief. Then the lower left hem caught fire. Not outward. Backward. A thin line of ember flame ran from the edge of the veil up through the hidden seam, burning only 1 thread. It did not touch the bride's hair. It did not scar her cheek. It did not blacken the silk. It crawled along the reattached vow thread, like a wound reopening under light. The guards holding Tavena froze. Lethia whispered, No. Oryn stepped down from the altar. The flame reached the inner vow knot beneath the bride's veil and stopped. For 1 terrible second, the ancient fabric glowed red from within. Then a name burned through the silk in letters made of ash and fire. Not Saravin. The bride screamed and tore at the veil, but the fire did not burn her. It burned the lie. Tavena pulled 1 arm free from the stunned guard and faced the chamber. Her voice did not shake. The bridal veil held another woman's first vow. Oryn stared at the burning thread, then at Lethia's white face, then at Tavena's ash-burned hands. His voice did not soften. Whose vow was cut to dress my bride? Lethia Dorn answered before the burning mark became a name. Old residue, she said, her voice too calm for the fire crawling through the royal veil. Ancient bridal cloth carries old vows. Everyone knows this. A dead queen's thread, a widow's breath, knot, a forgotten seam. It proves age, Majesty, not theft. The name in the silk flickered. Not Saravin, not yet Riadabel. Only the first curve of a letter, made of ash-red light, burned beneath the veil's inner layer. Lady Saravine stood trembling at the altar, both hands lifted near her face but afraid to touch the fire. The flame did not bite her skin. It did not catch her hair. It stayed inside 1 narrow thread, burning backward through the hidden seam like a truth, trying to find its beginning. Dragon King Oryn Kade did not look away from it. Whose vow was cut to dress my bride? He asked. His voice did not soften. Lethia bowed her head. Majesty, with respect, the veil has wrapped 6 royal brides and 3 treaty wives. If every old thread is treated as accusation, no wedding in Emberfall will survive its own history. Tavena Ashlow pulled her arm fully free from the guard's grip. The guard looked toward Oryn. Oryn did not order him forward again. That was not mercy, not apology. It was attention withheld from punishment. Tavena accepted nothing from it. A memory thread lies quiet, she said. A cut vow burns toward the wound. Lethia turned to her with polished disdain. The ash girl speaks as if cloth has a throat. No, Tavena said. Cloth has tension. The flame reached the bride's left shoulder and stopped at a tiny blackened knot beneath the surface of the silk. Tavena saw it clearly now. A breath knot, moved too high, pulled tight by someone who wanted the old thread hidden beneath fresh embroidery. Her burned fingers ached. She did not reach for it. Do not let her near the veil, Lethia warned. She has already frightened the bride. The veil is frightening the bride, Tavena said. I am only reading why. Seravine's eyes filled with tears behind the glowing fabric. She was not angry. That mattered. She looked confused, frightened, and suddenly young beneath jewels chosen by other hands. Tavena kept her voice steady. Lady Saravan did not cut this. The chamber shifted. Lethia's mouth tightened. Oryn's gaze moved from the bride to Tavena. How do you know? Because the fire avoids her skin. Lethia laughed once. Generous. Now the ash girl protects the bride she tried to shame. I protect the work, Tavena said. The veil does not punish women for wearing what they were handed. Oryn's eyes sharpened at the echo of her law. Tavena looked at the lower hem. The burn began at the reattached edge. It traveled upward through the stolen thread. If Seravine had made the theft, the fire would have followed her breath through the veil. It did not. Lethia stepped between Tavena and the altar. Majesty. Repairs were made to preserve royal dignity. Ancient veils tear, vow threads weaken. I ordered the seam restored so your bride would not stand before the court in damaged cloth. Tavena's face did not change. Repair joins what is torn. This was cut before it was allowed to tear. The flames struck the breath knot. The knot flared white. For one heartbeat, the chamber smelled of burned silk and dragon ash. Then the veil gave a sound. Not speech. A thread snapping under a hand that had pulled too hard. Seravine cried out. But again, the fire did not touch her. Oryn stepped closer. What did it break? Tavena's throat tightened. She knew that sound. She had heard it in old veils after widowed vows, broken treaties, and deathbed promises. But this was not age. This was clean violence hidden under ceremonial stitching. The breath knot was moved, she said. Lethia spoke quickly. Breath knots are adjusted for fit, not across a blood price knot. A colder silence settled. Oryn turned fully. Explain. Lethia's fingers tightened around the marriage ledger. Majesty, this is workroom language. It means nothing to a royal contract. It means everything to a vow, Tavena said. She lifted her burned hands again, palms open, showing everyone she still touched nothing. The first vow thread carries 4 marks. Name promised, breath given, blood price paid, witness heat sealed. If a veil is reused, old marks sleep under the new vow. They do not burn unless someone cuts one thread and dresses another bride with it. Oryn looked back at Seravine's veil. The fire had thinned to a red line beneath the left hem. It pulsed there, waiting. Can it show when? He asked. Lethia's head snapped toward him. Majesty, can it? Oryn repeated. Tavena did not look at him softly. It can show sequence, not guilt. Then show sequence. Lethia stepped forward. The bride contract has already been signed. If you let servant superstition disturb the veil now, the Ember houses will call this insult. Tavena looked at the ledger in Lethia's arms. Then open the bride contract. Lethia smiled thinly. You do not command royal records. No, Tavena said. But the veil is already reading one. Oryn held out his hand. The wedding chamber went very still. Lethia did not give the ledger over at once. That delay was her mistake. Oryn noticed. So did Tavena. Bride, scribe, he said. Lethia placed the marriage ledger in his hand with a bow deep enough to hide her face. Oryn opened it to the contract page. The ink was red-black, sealed with dragon wax. Seravine's name written in flawless script beside his own. Tavena looked at the veil, then at the lower left hem. Hold the contract near the burn, not touching. Oryn did as she said. The fire inside the veil bent toward the ledger. It did not write a name. It did not accuse Lethia. It did not save Tavena. It burned sequence. A thin line of ash light crossed the contract date. Then another line burned above it. Older, colder, hidden in the veil's thread memory. Vow-thread cut before bride contract was signed. Oryn looked from the burned contract date to the unfinished name still glowing beneath the veil. His voice did not soften. Where is the first vow record? Lethia Dorn reached for the marriage ledger before anyone asked her to. Her fingers closed around the lower corner, as if the book had suddenly become fragile. The ember fire inside the bridal veil still glowed beneath Lady Seravine's silk, thin and red, caught between an unfinished name and a severed vow thread. Oryn Kade did not let Lethia take the ledger back. Where is the first vow record? He asked. His voice did not soften. Lethia bowed her head. First vow records are archived separately, Majesty. They do not govern final bride contracts once a royal match is sealed. Tavena Ashlow watched Lethia's thumb. It rested on the left margin. Too precisely, too protectively. No, Tavena said. First vow records do not govern a final contract, but they govern the veil. Lethia turned toward her. Again, workroom language. Again, Tavena said. The only language the veil still answers. The ember thread pulsed beneath Seravine's veil. The bride stood very still now, frightened but not guilty, her hands lowered from her face. Tavena was grateful for that. Panic would have given Lethia another weapon. Oryn opened the ledger wider. Show me the first vow entry. Lethia's smile returned, faint and controlled. Majesty, old vow names are removed when contracts fail. It is common practice. It preserves dignity for all parties. Failed vows are crossed out, Tavena said. This one was cut out. The chamber chilled beneath the candle fire. Oryn looked at her. How can you know that without seeing the archive? Tavena lifted one burned hand, not toward the veil, but toward the margin of the ledger. Because the veil is missing the echo that should match the page. Lethia gave a soft laugh. Now pages have echoes? Vow pages do, Tavena said. When the first vow is lawful, the ledger keeps a breath mark in the margin. Not a name. Not enough to shame anyone. Just proof that a vow existed before a final contract replaced it. Oryn looked down. Tavena saw his eyes find the place. There should have been a small ember dot beside the contract line, barely visible unless heated by the veil. Instead, the margin looked too clean, scraped, polished, re-inked. Lethia spoke quickly. The ledger was restored for the wedding. Old ash marks were removed for clarity. Tavena did not look at her. Ash marks fade. Scrapes shine. Oryn's thumb moved over the margin but did not touch the ink. And this? Cut vellum, Tavena said. Sanded thin, rewritten over. Lethia's face hardened. You are accusing the royal marriage office of mutilating a ledger because a servant sees shine on a page? I am saying the page is thinner where a name should have slept. The veil's lower hem trembled, not burning higher, waiting. Oryn turned the ledger toward the veil. Lethia stepped forward. Majesty, if you expose an archived vow before treaty witnesses, the Ember Houses may take this as insult. Tavena looked at Oryn then. No softness, no gratitude. If you hide it, they will take the lie as marriage. That struck him. Not enough to apologize. Enough to move. He held the ledger near the veil's burning thread. The flame bent toward the left margin, not toward Seravine's written name. A thin ember line crawled over the page and stopped at the scraped place. Nothing appeared. Lethia exhaled. There. No first vow. Tavena's burned fingers ached. No. Too much absence. Oryn's eyes narrowed. Explain. A failed vow leaves ash. A broken vow leaves a scar. An erased vow leaves hunger. The flame pressed against the blank margin. The page darkened around it. Seravine whispered, I did not know. No one answered her. Tavena's voice lowered. I believe you. Lethia snapped. Do not speak to the bride. Tavena did not look away from the page. The veil already has. The breath knot inside the silk pulsed once. The blood price knot beneath it gave a dull red flicker, deeper than the first fire. Tavena saw the order clearly now. Breath moved. Blood. Price left behind. Name removed. A clumsy thief would have cut everything. Lethia had cut only what could be read quickly. You moved the breath knot, Tavena said, but you left the blood price knot tied to the old vow. Lethia's eyes flashed. Blood price knots belong to the royal house, not to servants' interpretation. Then why is it not answering Seravine's contract? The bride went pale. Oryn's gaze lowered to the glowing veil. The blood price knot pulsed again. Not toward Seravine. Not toward Lethia. Toward the erased place in the ledger. Oryn held the page steady. Can the veil show the erased name? No, Tavena said. Not yet. Lethia seized the words. Then this is nothing. Tavena turned to her. It can show when the name was erased. Lethia's lips parted. Only slightly. Enough. Oryn saw it. Show sequence, he said. Tavena did not touch the veil. She only spoke the vow mender's measure, the one Lethia had never learned because it could not be copied into clean script. If the first vow failed, leave ash. If the first vow was lawfully released, cross the thread. If the name was removed before the new bride's contract, burn the margin. For one breath, the royal wedding chamber held still. Then the ember flame inside the veil shot down the stolen thread and struck the ledger's left margin. The scraped vellum blackened. A line burned through the polished blank, not writing a name, not accusing a hand, only recording the order of damage. Original vow name erased before Seravine's contract was signed. Oryn looked from the burned margin to the blood price knot still pulsing beneath the veil. His voice did not soften. Why does the crown blood price remain tied to a name your ledger erased? Lethia Dorn answered before Oryn could look at the blood price not too long. Crown blood price belongs to the royal house, she said, not to any single woman. It binds the marriage office, the throne, the treaty line, and the bride chosen by final contract. Old knots may remain beneath the silk without governing the wedding. The blood price knot pulsed under Lady Seravine's veil. Once, slow, red as a coal buried beneath ash. Tavena Ashlow watched the pulse, not Lethia's mouth. Lethia had learned to make words clean. Threads did not. Oryn Kade held the marriage ledger open. the burned line still black across the scraped margin. Original vow name erased before Servine's contract was signed. His voice did not soften. Why does the crown blood price remain tied to a name your ledger erased? Lethia bowed slightly. Because the crown pays before the court knows the bride. That is royal practice. Houses pledge blood price early to secure alliances. The final bride contract merely assigns the honor. Tavena looked at her then. A house can pledge gold early. Blood does not bind before a name. The chamber tightened. Servine stood pale beneath the veil, her hands trembling near her waist. She did not reach for Oryn. She did not defend Lethia. That mattered. She was beginning to understand that the veil had not shamed her. It had spared her from wearing a stolen wound. Lethia turned toward Tavena. You speak of royal blood as if it were thread in your workbasket. No, Tavena said. I speak of thread because someone used it to hide royal blood. The blood price knot pulsed again. Oryn lowered the ledger closer to the veil. Read it. Tavena did not move toward him. Not if she stands between me and the hymn. Lethia's head snapped up. I am bride scribe. I stand where the record requires. You stand where the lower left hem cannot be seen. The words struck too directly. Lethia's fingers tightened around nothing, remembering the ledger was no longer in her hands. Oryn saw the movement. Step aside, he said. Lethia's smile held, but only by force. Majesty, the bride's veil should not be exposed to a servant's handling. Tavena has not touched it. That was the first clear protection he had given her. Not an apology, not trust, a boundary. Lethia stepped aside. Tavena did not thank him. A king who moved late did not earn gratitude for allowing truth to breathe. She studied the veil from where she stood. The lower left hem had burned clean along one thread, but the rest of the silk remained whole. Beneath the inner layer, 3 knots glowed in a broken order. Breath, knot moved high, name, thread cut away, blood price still buried deep near the original seam. Wrong order, she said. Oryn's gaze sharpened. Meaning? A bride contract receives breath first, then name, then blood price. This veil holds blood price before Servine's name. Thread. Lethia laughed softly. Royal houses often secure blood price before embroidery is complete. Embroidery, yes. Vow-thread, no. Tavena lifted her burned hands again, palms open. If Servine's contract were first, her name thread would warm the knot. It does not. The blood price burns beneath her thread, not through it. Servine whispered, Can that happen by old repair? Tavena looked at her. Only if old repair was cut and dressed as new promise. The bride closed her eyes. Lethia spoke quickly. This cruelty is unnecessary. Lady Servine has done nothing. No, Tavena said. She has not. The answer denied Lethia a shield. Oryn turned a page in the ledger. Where is the blood price entry? Lethia stepped forward again. Majesty, blood price entries are sealed under crown fire. Then crown fire will read them. Her face changed. Not much. Enough. Tavena saw it. So did Oryn. He pressed 2 fingers to the red iron seal beneath the contract page. A small flame rose under his touch, dark gold and almost black at the center. Dragonfire. Crown fire. The kind no servant could fake and no scribe could fully control. The ledger did not open to a new page. It thinned. A hidden underleaf appeared beneath the contract, pale as old bone. Oryn's jaw tightened. Lethia whispered, Majesty. That page contains treasury matters. Tavena said, Blood price is not treasury. No, Oryn said, eyes on the page. It is vow debt. The words changed the chamber. For the first time, the court seemed to remember that marriage was not only silk and treaty banners. It was breath, name, blood, and the price paid when royal power asked another life to bind itself to the throne. Tavena pointed to the underleaf. Read the date. Oryn did. 3rd Ember of Ashwain. Saravine frowned through the veil. My contract was signed on the 7th. Lethia answered too quickly. Preliminary pledge. Tavena shook her head. Preliminary pledge leaves a treasury mark. This is a blood price, not entry. Oryn looked at the veil. Can it show sequence? It can show sequence. Not guilt. Lethia's mouth tightened at the repeated law. Oryn held the underleaf near the burning lower hem. The ember thread bent toward the date. It did not write a name. It did not accuse Lethia. It did not choose Tavena. It burned order. The blood price knot flared deep red. The contract page darkened beneath Saravine's written name. A thin line of ashlight crossed the underleaf date first, then moved to the bride contract date 4 days later. One line formed between them. Blood price paid before Saravine's name entered the ledger. The chamber did not laugh now. Lethia's face went very still. Oryn looked from the burning underleaf to the unfinished name still hidden in the veil. His voice did not soften. Who received the crown blood price before my bride was named? Lethia Dorn looked at the underleaf before she looked at the king. That was Tavena's first answer. The blood price entry still glowed beneath Oryn Kade's hand, red as a coal pressed under bone. Blood price paid before Saravine's name entered the ledger. Oryn did not look away from it. Who received the crown blood price before my bride was named? Lethia's composure returned one breath too late. The Royal Marriage Office received it, Majesty. Blood price may pass through office custody before being assigned to the final bride. That is not theft, it is administration. Tavena Ashlow watched the veil, not Lethia's mouth. The blood price knot did not pulse toward the marriage office seal. It pulsed toward the lower left hem. No, Tavena said. Lethia turned on her. No, office custody leaves wax, Tavena said. This left heat. Oryn's gaze shifted to her. Explain. Tavena did not soften for him. He had allowed her to be dragged from the veil. He had called thread panic a threat to crown blood. Now the same thread was making him read what he should have asked before signing. Gold can sit in an office, she said. Blood price cannot. Once royal blood price touches vow-thread, it must answer a name, a breath, or a witness heat. Lethia gave a thin laugh. Witness heat, another workroom ghost. Tavena lifted her burned hands. This is what witness heat costs, the chamber quieted. Even the noblewomen who had laughed at her stains looked at the scars differently now. Not kindly, not yet, but with the first discomfort of realizing something they had mocked might have been carrying law. Lethia saw the shift and struck quickly. Majesty, she is trying to turn burns into authority. Ash workers are burned every season. It does not make them witnesses. No, Tavena said. Pain does not make authority. Her fingers curled once. Records do. Oryn looked down at the underleaf. Where would that record be? Lethia's hand moved toward the ledger, then stopped. Too late to hide the instinct. Tavena saw it. Lower binding, she said. Lethia's face hardened. Oryn turned the ledger slightly. Beneath the contract pages, near the stitched spine, a narrow strip of ash silk had been tucked into the binding. It was almost invisible unless the veil burned near it. Old royal ledgers hid witness strips there, so marriage scribes could not alter vow reception without cutting the whole book apart. Lethia said, Binding scraps. Restoration waste. Tavena did not blink. Restoration waste is loose. That is knotted. Oryn touched the strip. The Ember Bridal Veil flared. Not high. Not violent. Only enough to make the ash silk thread glow from inside the binding. A tiny knot appeared in the strip. black at the center, red at the edges. Tavena knew it before the court could understand it. A witness heat knot, pressed by burned fingers into vow-thread. When royal blood price arrived before final contract, her stomach tightened. She had made knots like that years ago. Not this one. This one was older than Saravine's contract, but not old enough to be dead history. Lethia spoke quickly. Witness strips are copied by scribes. They do not prove who received anything. Correct, Tavena said. They prove sequence. Oryn's eyes narrowed. Can it show who witnessed the blood price? It can show standing, Tavena said. Not name. Lethia seized on it. Then this helps nothing. It helps enough. Tavena looked at the veil. The unfinished name still burned beneath the silk, refusing to form. The veil was holding back, not because it lacked power, but because law had order. Name could not be restored before standing was proven. A stolen promise could not be returned by spectacle. It had to be read. Tavena spoke the old measure, low and clear. If blood price passed through office custody, leave wax. If it entered vow-thread by bride's breath, warm the name. If it was received under witness heat before final bride contract, burn the binding. Lethia stepped forward. Majesty, stop this. Oryn did not look at her. No, it was a small word. A hard one. The first one he had placed between Lethia and Tavena, without hiding behind procedure. The veil answered. The ash silk binding burned red from end to end. It did not burn the pages, it did not touch Oryn's hand. It drew one line through the hidden witness strip and stopped beneath a place where a seal should have been. The seal was gone, cut out. Tavena's breath caught. Lethia smiled suddenly. There. No witness seal. Tavena looked at the cut place. Failed witness seals are crossed. Revoked seals are blackened. This one was removed. Oryn's voice lowered. Why remove a witness seal? Because the witness could still answer, Tavena said. The veil gave one soft thread snap. Then fire wrote across the binding strip, not naming the bride, not accusing Lethia, not freeing Tavena. It recorded standing. Crown blood price received under vow-thread witness seal. The court stared. Lethia went white around the mouth. Oryn looked at Tavena's burned hands. His voice did not soften. Who in this chamber still holds vow-thread witness standing? Lethia Dorn answered before Tavena could breathe. No one, she said. Vow-thread witness standing is dead law. The witness seal was cut because the office no longer recognizes burned workroom hands as ceremonial authority. The words found the old wound cleanly. Burned workroom hands. Tavena kept hers open at her sides. Oryn Kade looked from the glowing binding strip to Tavena. Who in this chamber still holds vow-thread witness standing? His voice did not soften. Lethia stepped forward, placing herself between Tavena and the veil again. Majesty. If you let her claim witness standing now, she can poison every thread in this room. Look at her hands. Ash thread has entered the scars. The veil is reacting to contamination. Tavena almost laughed, not because it was amusing, because Lethia had finally chosen the oldest cruelty. When truth could not be beaten, call the truth dirty. Lady Saravine's face tightened beneath the veil. She has not touched it. Lethia turned sharply. My lady, fear can make kindness dangerous. No, Tavena said. Fear makes scribes useful. The chamber went cold. Lethia's smile vanished. Oryn looked at Tavena. Can contamination make a vow thread burn backward? No. Lethia snapped. She would say that. Tavena did not look away from Oryn. Ash on skin marks surface. Vow thread answers heat inside the knot. If my hands caused this, the fire would follow me. It has not. The Ember Bridal Veil pulsed once. Still around Saravine. Still around the cut thread. Still waiting. Lethia seized the pause. Then let her prove it by purity thread. A murmur moved through the court. Tavena's burned fingers curled despite herself. Purity thread was not law. It was humiliation dressed as ceremony. A white vow thread would be drawn across her palms. If it darkened, Lethia would claim the ashen Tavena scars had corrupted the veil. Noblewomen used it on servants before bridal rites when they wanted shame to look lawful. Oryn saw her hands close. For the first time, something in his face sharpened toward anger. Not apology, not tenderness. Recognition of a trap. What does purity thread prove? He asked. Lethia bowed. That her hands are unfit to approach royal vows. Tavena answered before Oryn could. It proves whether my hands are clean, not whether your record is true. Lethia's eyes flashed. Afraid? Yes, Tavena said. The court stilled. Tavena lifted her burned palms. I am afraid of giving liars a clean ritual to hide behind. That landed harder than denial. Oryn held out the ledger. What proves witness standing? The seal bed, Tavena said. Lethia went still. Tavena pointed to the place cut from the binding strip. A witness seal can be removed from a ledger. But if the standing remains, the seal bed remembers pressure. Not name, not guilt. Sequence. Oryn looked at Lethia. Why was the seal removed? Because it was obsolete. Then it should leave dead ash, Tavena said. Not a live bed. Oryn lowered the ledger toward the veil. Lethia moved. Majesty, do not. The command stopped her, but it did not comfort Tavena. Oryn was still using the law because the law had cornered him. He had not yet chosen the woman it had wounded. Tavena spoke the witness measure. If the seal was obsolete, leave ash. If the witness was revoked, blacken the bed. If the seal was cut while standing remained, burn the hollow. The veil's fire thinned to a single thread. Then it slipped from the blood-price knot to the binding strip. The cut place glowed. Not red. White. The hollow where the witness seal should have rested burned from within, and a line formed across the ash silk binding. Vow-thread witness seal, cut while standing remained. Lethia's breath caught. Oryn looked at Tavena's hands. Tavena did not lower them. The hollow burned again. A second line appeared, colder and sharper. Tavena Ashlow. Vow. Thread witness standing unbroken. The court that had laughed at her stains fell silent. Lethia recovered with a blade-thin smile. Then she is more dangerous than I said. Oryn turned to her. His voice did not soften. Why was my only living vow-thread witness removed from the wedding record? Lady Saravini lifted the burning veil away from her lips without touching the flame. It was the first brave thing anyone in the wedding chamber had done without being ordered. I did not ask for her removal, she said. The court turned toward her, as if the bride herself had become dangerous. Lethia Dorn's face softened at once. My lady, no one accuses you. No, Tavena Ashlow said. That is why she is useful to you. Saravine went very still. Lethia's eyes cut to Tavena. Careful, Ash girl. Tavena Ashlow, Oryn said. Not gently, but he used her name. That small correction crossed the chamber like a blade sliding free of its sheath. Lethia bowed toward him. Majesty. The witness was removed because the marriage office judged her presence improper. The bride's veil had already been approved. A burned servant standing beside royal silk would have invited insult from the Ember houses. Tavena looked at the veil, not at Oryn. Improper is not a legal reason. It is when dignity is at stake. Dignity did not cut my seal. Lethia's expression thinned. Oryn held the ledger open, the words still glowing across the hidden binding. Tavena Ashlow. Vow. Thread witness standing unbroken. "Show me the removal order," he said. Lethia did not move. The silence answered before she did. Oryn's gaze hardened. Bride, scribe. Lethia reached into the inner sleeve of her ceremonial robe and withdrew a narrow folded document sealed with red dragon wax. She held it like a clean thing that could not possibly carry dirt. Tavena knew the fold. Wedding chamber exclusion. A servant's ban dressed in ceremony. Lethia placed it in Oryn's hand. Signed under bridal purity authority, fully lawful. Oryn broke the wax. Tavena did not step closer. She did not plead to read it. If she touched it, Lethia would call the paper contaminated. If she begged, Oryn would hear need instead of proof. So she watched the crease. The upper fold had a burn line. Not fresh. Hidden. The order was heated, Tavena said. Lethia smiled. All wedding documents are warm to set wax. Not there. The heat crossed the witness clause. Oryn's eyes moved to the fold. Lethia spoke quickly. The witness clause was removed because it no longer applied. Removed? Tavena asked. Lethia turned too slowly. There it was. The wrong word. Oryn heard it. Tavena's burned fingers ached, but she kept them still. A clause that never applied is left blank. A clause that once applied is removed. The veil pulsed. The unfinished name beneath the silk brightened, still refusing to form. Lethia's smile vanished. Majesty, if this continues, the Ember houses will withdraw. The bride stands shamed, the contract delayed, and the only person gaining power is a servant whose hands can make ash look like law. Tavena looked at Oryn then. No softness. If you keep the contract whole, my standing dies under your wedding seal. The words struck where Lethia wanted him trapped. Oryn stood with the marriage ledger in one hand and the exclusion order in the other. One held the false contract. One held the removal of the only witness who could expose it. His crown, his ceremony, his treaty, his future bride, his court, all arranged so truth would arrive too late. Lethia lowered her voice. Majesty, choose the wedding. Question the ashwork later if you must. But do not break an alliance because an old veil dislikes a repair. Tavena almost laughed. Later was where buried vows went to become dust. The veil will not hold until later, she said. Oryn looked at her. What happens if the witness removal stands? The unfinished name burns out, Tavena said. The stolen thread settles under Seravine's contract. After vows, the old promise becomes crown silence. Seravine's face went pale. And I would wear it? Yes, Tavena said, gentler to the bride than to the king. Not as guilt, as cover. Lethia snapped. Enough. Oryn lifted the exclusion order toward the veil. Lethia stepped forward. Majesty. Still. The command stopped her. Not enough to save Tavena. Enough to let the paper answer. The ember flame inside the veil bent toward the folded order. It did not touch Oryn's hand. It did not scorch the bride. It crawled across the paper's hidden crease and found the place where the witness clause had been cut away. For one breath, nothing appeared. Then the dragon wax seal blackened. A line burned through the exclusion order in ash red script. Vow-thread witness removed before veil approval was complete. The court recoiled. Lethia's voice sharpened. Administrative preparation. Tavena looked at her. No. Silencing. The veil burned hotter. A second line formed beneath the first, smaller, colder, and far more cruel. Tavena Ashlow, to be barred before first vow-thread could answer. Oryn looked from the burning order to Tavena. His voice did not soften. If I suspend this wedding now, what does the veil reveal next? Tavena looked at the unfinished name glowing beneath the silk. Her answer cost her breath. The person your crown promised before Seravine. Lady Saravine lifted the burning veil away from her lips without touching the flame. It was the first brave thing anyone in the wedding chamber had done without being ordered. I did not ask for her removal, she said. The court turned toward her as if the bride herself had become dangerous. Lethia Dorn's face softened at once. My lady, no one accuses you. No, Tavena Ashlow said. That is why she is useful to you. Saravine went very still. Lethia's eyes cut to Tavena. Careful, Ash girl. Tavena Ashlow, Oryn said. Not gently, but he used her name. That small correction crossed the chamber like a blade, sliding free of its sheath. Lethia bowed toward him. Majesty, the witness was removed because the marriage office judged her presence improper. The bride's veil had already been approved. A burned servant standing beside royal silk would have invited insult from the Ember houses. Tavena looked at the veil, not at Oryn. Improper is not a legal reason. It is when dignity is at stake. Dignity did not cut my seal. Lethia's expression thinned. Oryn held the ledger open, the words still glowing across the hidden binding. Tavena Ashlow. Vow. Thread witness standing unbroken. Show me the removal order, he said. Lethia did not move. The silence answered before she did. Oryn's gaze hardened. Bride. Scribe. Lethia reached into the inner sleeve of her ceremonial robe and withdrew a narrow folded document sealed with red dragon wax. She held it like a clean thing that could not possibly carry dirt. Tavena knew the fold. Wedding chamber exclusion. A servant's ban, dressed in ceremony. Lethia placed it in Oryn's hand. Signed under bridal purity authority. Fully lawful. Oryn broke the wax. Tavena did not step closer. She did not plead to read it. If she touched it, Lethia would call the paper contaminated. If she begged, Oryn would hear need instead of proof. So she watched the crease. The upper fold had a burn line. Not fresh. Hidden. The order was heated, Tavena said. Lethia smiled. All wedding documents are warmed to set wax. Not there. The heat crossed the witness clause. Oryn's eyes moved to the fold. Lethia spoke quickly. The witness clause was removed because it no longer applied. Removed? Tavena asked. Lethia turned too slowly. There it was. The wrong word. Oryn heard it. Tavena's burned fingers ached, but she kept them still. A clause that never applied is left blank. A clause that once applied is removed. The veil pulsed. The unfinished name beneath the silk brightened, still refusing to form. Lethia's smile vanished. Majesty, if this continues, the Ember houses will withdraw. The bride stands shamed, the contract delayed, and the only person gaining power is a servant whose hands can make ash look like law. Tavena looked at Oryn then. No softness. If you keep the contract whole, my standing dies under your wedding seal. The words struck where Lethia wanted him trapped. Oryn stood with the marriage ledger in one hand and the exclusion order in the other. One held the false contract. One held the removal of the only witness who could expose it. His crown, his ceremony, his treaty, his future bride, his court all arranged so truth would arrive too late. Lethia lowered her voice. Majesty, choose the wedding. Question the ashwork later if you must, but do not break an alliance because an old veil dislikes a repair. Tavena almost laughed. Later was where buried vows went to become dust. The veil will not hold until later, she said. Oryn looked at her. What happens if the witness removal stands? The unfinished name burns out, Tavena said. The stolen thread settles under Saravene's contract. After vows, the old promise becomes crown silence. Saravine's face went pale. And I would wear it? Yes, Tavena said, gentler to the bride than to the king. Not as guilt, as cover. Lethia snapped. Enough. Oryn lifted the exclusion order toward the veil. Lethia stepped forward. Majesty. Still. The command stopped her. Not enough to save Tavena. Enough to let the paper answer. The ember flame inside the veil bent toward the folded order. It did not touch Oryn's hand. It did not scorch the bride. It crawled across the paper's hidden crease and found the place where the witness clause had been cut away. For one breath, nothing appeared. Then the dragon wax seal blackened. A line burned through the exclusion order in ash-red script. Vow-thread witness removed before veil approval was complete. The court recoiled. Lethia's voice sharpened. Administrative preparation. Tavena looked at her. No. Silencing. The veil burned hotter. A second line formed beneath the first, smaller, colder, and far more cruel. Tavena Ashlow to be barred before first vow-thread could answer. Oryn looked from the burning order to Tavena. His voice did not soften. If I suspend this wedding now, what does the veil reveal next? Tavena looked at the unfinished name glowing beneath the silk. Her answer cost her breath. The person your crown promised before Saravine. The wedding bells outside the chamber did not ring. They waited. That was worse. Every noble in the royal wedding chamber seemed to hear the silence above them, the great bronze mouths hanging in the tower with their first note trapped behind law. If Dragon King Oryn Kade allowed the vows to continue, the bells would seal Saravani's contract. If he stopped them, 3 ember houses would witness a royal insult. Lethia Dorn stepped into that silence like she had prepared for it. Majesty, she said, no crown can suspend a wedding over an unfinished name. If the veil cannot show the person, then it has shown nothing but damaged thread. Tavena Ashlow looked at the Ember Bridal Veil. The unfinished name still glowed beneath Lady Saravine's silk, a faint ash-red curve caught inside the hidden seam. It wanted to form. It could not. Not because it lacked truth, because something had been taken from the order. The name cannot finish, Tavena said, because the breath knot was moved. Lethia gave a soft, controlled laugh. Convenient. Tavena did not look at her. No, costly. Oryn's eyes sharpened. What does it cost? Tavena lifted her burned hands. The court saw the scars again. This time no one laughed. A vow. Thread witness can lend heat to a damaged breath knot, she said. Not to choose a bride, not to force a name, only to let the thread remember its own beginning. Lethia turned quickly to the nobles. You hear her. She wants to put her hands into the royal veil. No, Tavena said. I want the veil to prove whether my hands belong in this chamber. Lady Saravin spoke before Lethia could stop her. Will it hurt you? Tavena looked at the bride. Yes. Saravine's face changed. Not guilt. Horror. Oryn looked at Tavena's hands, then at the veil. Is there another way? Tavena's answer was flat. There was. Before I was removed. The words struck him, but she gave him no comfort after them. Lethia seized the wound. Majesty, this is manipulation. She wants pain to look like proof. Pain is not proof, Tavena said. I told you that. She stepped toward the veil. No guard stopped her this time. Oryn's silence held them back. Tavena stopped an arm's length from Saravine. She did not touch the bride. She did not touch the silk. She only held her palms near the burning lower hem, close enough for the heat to find the old scars. The ash in her skin woke. It hurt at once. Not like fresh flame. Worse. Like every old burn remembering the hour it was made. The unfinished name brightened. Lethia's face went still. Tavena spoke through the pain. If the first vow failed, leave ash. If the first vow was released, cross the thread. If the first vow holder was barred before the veil could answer, take witness heat and record sequence. The veil's flame bent toward her palms. Oryn stepped once, then stopped himself. Good, Tavena thought through the pain. Do not rescue what you helped silence. The breath knot inside the veil loosened. A thin red thread slid back toward the lower left hem, dragging light through the hidden seam. The court watched as the stolen vow thread pulled away from Seravine's contract without burning her skin. Lethia whispered, "Stop." Tavena's arms trembled. The veil did not write a full name. Not yet. It burned a line across the exclusion order, still lying open in Oryn's hand. First vow holder barred from chamber before Bridal Veil could answer. The chamber recoiled. Oryn looked at the words, then at Tavena's shaking hands. His voice did not soften. Who signed the chamber bar? Lethia answered too fast. The marriage office. Tavena lowered one hand, breath catching. No. The office seal binds the bottom. The signer's heat sits at the fold. Oryn turned the exclusion order. The fold mark glowed, not with crown fire, with scribe heat. Lethia reached for the paper. Oryn moved it out of her reach. Tavena looked at him. Hold it near the breath knot. He did. The veil's flame touched the fold and a small black thread burned through the wax, revealing a hidden pressure mark beneath the seal. Bride scribe. Lethia's mark. The veil burned again, colder this time. Bride scribe authorized witness bar before final veil approval. Seravine stepped back from Lethia. That movement did more damage than any accusation. Lethia's polished calm cracked. I protected the ceremony. I protected the crown from a servant's claim on royal silk. Tavena looked at her. No. You protected the cut. The unfinished name beneath the veil flared suddenly. One letter formed. Then another. Tavena's vision blurred from pain. Oryn saw the letters before the rest of the court understood why Lethia had gone pale. They I be. The flames stopped. Tavena staggered, catching herself before she fell. Oryn's hand moved toward her, but she looked at him once and he stopped. Not forgiven. Not yet allowed. The veil's lower hem smoked, with a scent of burned silk and dragon ash. Lethia backed toward the marriage ledger. Oryn's voice cut across the chamber. Do not touch that book. The unfinished name glowed brighter beneath the veil. Tavena held her burned hands against her chest and forced herself to stand. The Ember Bridal Veil gave one soft thread snap. Then it burned a new line across the marriage ledger's scraped margin. First vow name began with Tavena, before the chamber bar was signed. The first sound in the wedding chamber was not a gasp. It was Lethia Dorn turning a page too quickly. The scraped marriage ledger lay open beneath Dragon King Oryn Kade's hand, and the burned line across the margin did not fade. First vow name began with Tavena before the chamber bar was signed. Tavena Ashlow stood with her burned hands pressed against her chest. Breathing through pain, she refused to let the court see fully. The Ember Bridal Veil still hung over Lady Seraven, but its fire had pulled away from the bride's skin and gathered in the lower left hem, where the stolen thread smoked red gold in the air. Lethia spoke before Oryn could. Witness name, she said. That is all. A vow-thread mender's name can appear when she repairs royal cloth. It does not make her a bride, it makes her a worker recorded near the seam. Tavena did not answer at once. The lie was clever because it touched truth. Vow-thread menders did leave heat near repaired hems. Her hands had touched the veil for years. Her name could have appeared in work margins, repair strips, and witness knots. But not there, not in the first vow line. Oryn's voice remained cold. Can a witness name burn in the first vow place? Lethia turned to him with a controlled expression. If the veil is damaged, yes. Tavena looked at the hem. No, Lethia snapped. You are not the only person in Emberfall who understands thread. No, Tavena said. But I am the one you tried to bar before the veil could answer. The bride scribe's mouth closed. Seravine's face had gone pale beneath the veil. If her name is there, she whispered, why was mine written over it? No one answered quickly enough. That hurt worse than cruelty. Oryn looked at Tavena. Can the veil finish the name? It can, Tavena said. Lethia's voice sharpened. Majesty, if you allow this, you make a servant's burned hands equal to a royal bride contract. Tavena's eyes stayed on Oryn. No. You make the contract, answer the thread it used. Oryn held the ledger toward the veil. Finish it. Tavena did not move. He saw that. What does it require? The breath knot, she said. Lethia went still. Tavena looked at the veil's inner seam. The name began, but the breath knot was moved away from it. Without breath, the veil can show the start of the vow, not the person bound by it. Seravine swallowed. Then take it from me. Tavena's expression softened for the bride, but only slightly. It was never yours to give. That is why it has not burned you. Oryn turned toward Lethia. Where is the original breath knot? Lethia lifted her chin. Adjusted for royal fit, as I said. Where? In the veil. Tavena looked at the left shoulder of Seravine's silk. Too high. Lethia's eyes flashed. Tavena continued, each word controlled. A true breath knot rests near the name, thread. Whoever moved it wanted the name to fail before it could finish. Oryn stepped closer to the veil, not touching Seravine, not touching Tavena. Can sequence prove it? It can show order, Tavena said, not guilt. Lethia's smile returned, brittle and bright. Then we remain where we began. No, Tavena said. Now the thread knows where to look. She lifted one hand again. The pain rose before the fire reached her. Her scars remembered. Her fingers trembled, but she did not lower them. Oryn moved half a step. Tavena looked at him once. He stopped. Good. She would not let him make rescue out of the same hand that had let her be dragged away. If the breath knot was moved after lawful release, leave ash, she said. If it was moved for bridal fit, warm the seam. If it was moved to keep the first vow name from finishing, burn back to the cut. The Ember Bridal Veil tightened around no one. The lower hem flared. A red line shot upward through the stolen thread, past Seravine's shoulder, then stopped at the false breath knot. The knot twisted inside the silk like something trying to crawl home. Lethia whispered, Do not. The breath knot snapped loose. Seravine cried out, but the fire still did not touch her. The knot dropped through the veil like a coal falling through water and struck the lower left hem. The unfinished letters blazed. Tavena. Then more. Ashlow. The chamber went utterly still. Tavena did not breathe. For 6 winters, she had mended the veil without asking why it warmed beneath her hands. For 6 winters, she had thought the old thread recognized her work, not her vow. Her life had been made small enough that even wonder had learned to kneel. Oryn stared at the name, not with softness, with shock sharp enough to wound. Lethia moved toward the veil. Seravine stepped away from her. That stopped Lethia more completely than a guard's hand. The veil burned one more line, not across the ledger this time, but through the inner seam where the stolen thread had been tied into Seravine's contract. First vow-thread belonged to Tavena Ashlow, before bride contract was dressed over it. Lethia's face hardened into something almost ugly. A first vow is not a marriage. It is not a queen's claim. It is nothing until the king accepts it. Tavena looked at Oryn then. The whole chamber looked with her. Oryn held the marriage ledger in one hand and the burning veil record in the other. His crown blood price, his contract, his bride's silk, his allowed humiliation, all of it now stood between the woman he had dismissed and the wedding he had nearly completed. His voice did not soften. What must be broken before the veil releases the stolen vow? The answer waited in the bride contract's unburned seal. Red dragon wax held Seravine's name beside Oryn Kade's perfect, smooth, and false in the center of the royal marriage ledger. The Ember Bridal Veil still burned around the stolen thread, not touching Seravine, not reaching for Tavena, holding its fire until the law that had dressed one woman in another's vow was broken by the hand that had allowed it. Tavena Ashlow lowered her aching hand. The dressed contract, she said, not the bride, not the veil, the contract that carried the stolen thread. Lethia Dorn stepped forward so sharply her jewels clicked against her throat. Majesty, if you break that contract in front of 3 ember houses, you break the alliance. Seravine stood beneath the glowing veil, pale but steady. If he keeps it, I become the cover for theft. Lethia turned to her. My lady. No, Seravine said. Her voice trembled, but it did not fail. Do not protect me with what was stolen from her. That silence wounded Lethia more than accusation. Oryn looked at Tavena. If I break the contract, does the first vow bind you to me? The court held its breath. Tavena's burned hands curled once, then opened. No, a stolen vow does not become love because the thief is exposed. It becomes a debt. The veil pulsed. Oryn absorbed the answer without looking away. Good, Tavena thought. Let him hear the cost before he reached for absolution. Lethia recovered with desperate grace. A first vow without acceptance is ceremonial preparation. It gives her no standing above Lady Seravine, no queen's claim, no right to shame the crown. Tavena faced her. I did not ask for a crown. No, Lethia said. You asked for ruin. I asked why my name was cut out. The veil's inner seam flared red. Oryn turned the ledger toward the court so every witness could see the contract seal. Bride. Scribe Lethia Dorn removed Tavena Ashlow from the wedding record before the veil could answer. She cut the vow-thread witness seal while standing remained. She erased the first vow name before Seravine's contract was signed. She dressed my bride in a promise already tied to crown blood price. Lethia's face hardened. You signed what I placed before you. The chamber went still. Oryn's jaw tightened. Yes, he said. No one expected that. Not Lethia. Not the court. Not Tavena. Oryn looked at the ash-burned hands he had allowed guards to seize. I let clean script outweigh burned work. I let a bride scribe remove the only living witness because her hands embarrassed my court. I called truth thread panic because the alliance was convenient. The words did not soften him. They stripped him. Then he pressed his thumb into the red dragon wax of the bride contract. His crown fire rose black gold beneath his skin. Lethia lunged. Majesty, no. The veil moved first. Not like cloth, like memory under flame. A red gold thread shot from the lower hem and wrapped around Lethia's wrist before she reached the ledger. It did not burn through flesh. It burned through silk glove, ink stain, and hidden ash wax. Beneath her sleeve, a small cut thread fell loose. Tavena saw it. The missing witness seal, she said. Lethia froze. Oryn looked at the thread on the floor. The Ember Bridal Veil burned one final record into the open ledger. Bride scribe Lethia, Dorn cut first vow thread and dressed Seravine's contract over Tavena Ashlow's name. The wedding chamber recoiled. Lethia's control broke. I saved the crown from a servant bride. The words made Seravine flinch. Tavena did not. No, Tavena said quietly. You saved your place beside a false contract. Oryn's hand closed harder over the wax. The bride contract seal cracked. The sound was small, almost delicate. Then the wedding bells outside shattered their waiting silence into one broken note and stopped. The flame inside Seravine's veil loosened. The stolen vow thread withdrew from her contract, sliding out of the embroidery like a wound finally cleaned. Seravine gasped as the veil lifted from her face by itself and settled over Oryn's arm. No longer bridal, no longer false, only old silk-breathing smoke and ember light. Tavena swayed once. Oryn moved half a step. She looked at him. He stopped. Not forgiven. Learning. The unfinished fire in the veil formed her name fully now, but it did not bind itself around her. It hovered in the inner seam, waiting for her hand, her choice, her answer. Tavena Ashlow, first vow thread cut, witness standing unbroken. Oryn bowed his head before the court. Not to claim her. To the law he had nearly buried. Bride, scribe Lethia Dorn is stripped of office, he said. The royal marriage ledger will be opened under vow-thread witness review. No bride contract in Emberfall will stand over a cut first vow again. Lethia laughed once, bitter and bare. And the alliance? Seravine removed the last pins from her hair and let the jewels fall into her palm. An alliance that needs another woman erased is not mine to save. For the first time, Tavena looked at her without pain. Oryn turned to Tavena then. Your name was cut under my crown. The correction must be public under my crown. He held out the cracked contract seal. Tavena did not take it. Put it on the altar, she said, beside the veil, not in my hand. Oryn obeyed. That mattered more than kneeling would have. Tavena stepped to the Ember Vow altar with burned hands uncovered before every noble who had laughed at them. She laid 2 fingers near the veil, not on it, and spoke the law they had called dirty work. The Ember Bridal Veil does not choose brides. It remembers what was cut. The veil answered in a low thread hum. Tavena looked at Oryn. Your debt remains. My vow does not belong to you because Lethia stole it. I know, he said. Do you? His eyes held hers, dark with restraint. I will learn in public. A dangerous warmth moved between them, not soft enough to be forgiveness, not careless enough to be romance. Something slower, harder. Earned only by what he would repair after the chamber emptied. Tavena turned back to the court. I am Tavena Ashlow, she said. Not Ash Girl, not Stain, not seamstress frightened of stitches. Vow, thread witness standing unbroken. The veil's ember light rose around her burned hands like a crown she did not wear. Oryn did not stand in front of her. He stood 1 step behind, and when Tavena lifted her scarred fingers toward the next sealed page of the royal marriage ledger, the Ember Bridal Veil bent toward her, thread by thread, ready to remember every vow the court had tried to bury.